Welcome to the deep dive. We're taking the sources you've shared with us and distilling them into the most essential, fascinating nuggets of knowledge just for you. And today, we are diving deep into the life and mind of George Orwell. An author whose warnings really defined the 20th century.
Oh, absolutely. Orwell's influence is, it's just inescapable. His novels Animal Farm in 1984, they basically gave us the language to describe oppression.
The word Orwellian itself.
Exactly. It's become this universal shorthand. And what's really remarkable is how leaders and pundits from, the entire political spectrum, they all keep referencing him. It suggests his work speaks to something really fundamental, something that goes beyond any single ideology.
And that's exactly why this deep dive feels so necessary. Because it seems like everyone knows the words, but the deeper meaning, it gets oversimplified all the time. For a lot of people, his novels are just, anti-communist books, a warning against revolution itself.
But if you actually look at the source material, the reality is, well, it's a lot more complex. And frankly, kind of contradictory. Orwell himself was incredibly specific about what he was trying to do. In 1946, he wrote that every serious line he had written since 1936 was, and this is a direct quote, against totalitarianism and for democratic socialism.
Okay, so that sets up our central paradox right away. How did a man who literally devoted his career to advancing democratic socialist ideals, how did his books end up being used as pro-capitalist propaganda during the Cold War?
It's one of history's great ironies, really. We know for a fact the CIA secretly funded the animated film adaptations of Animal Farm in 1984. They stripped out all the nuance. They framed the stories as attacks on all forms of socialism.
They changed the ending of Animal Farm, didn't they?
They did. In the animated version, they completely changed the ending to suggest this sort of pro-capitalist resolution, which is completely twist Orwell's original warning.
Right, because his actual point wasn't to stop people from wanting equality. It was a warning, specifically to his fellow socialists, about how a revolution can be corrupted by a power-hungry elite, like the pigs in Animal Farm. So let's unpack this. Where did this intense anti-totalitarian conviction really come from? We have to start with his early life.
That's right. Before he was George Orwell, he was Eric Blair, born into an imperial family. But even before he went to the colonies, a lot of scholars point to his time at St. Cyprian's, an elite English public school.
And this was not a happy experience.
Not at all. You have to imagine an environment with these strict, arbitrary rules where any mistake led to, physical and psychological abuse. The whole curriculum was just mindless memorization of whatever the headmasters thought was important.
It sounds horrifyingly rigid, just oppressive.
It was. A deeply hierarchical place, poor sanitation, no privacy. That period of intense suffering under this kind of unaccountable authority, that's seen as the direct blueprint for the grim, hyper-controlled world of Oceania in 1984. It laid the groundwork, psychologically, for understanding total control.
And that foundation was then solidified when he joined the Imperial Police in Burma from 1922 to 1927. This seems like the crucible that really forged his anti-imperialist views.
It was. Burma forced him to confront what he called the unspeakable wrongness of imperialism, but also his own part in it. His essays from that time, like A Hanging or Shooting an Elephant, they're like battlegrounds. He's struggling with these totally contradictory thoughts. He's enforcing a system he despises.
So as he's writing about this, grappling with the fact that he's part of this system, degrading the Burmese people, but at the same time he resents them for hating him, was that the first glimmer of the idea he would later call doublethink?
Absolutely. That's a perfect way to put it. The need to hold two completely contradictory beliefs as true at the same time. I hate the empire, but I am the empire. It was a survival mechanism. He was desperate for moral clarity while actively taking part in oppression. He realized that to even function, he had to kind of destroy his own mental integrity.
And that awareness also extended to the economics of it all, right? The exploitation.
Oh, immediately. He was already forming his critique of the whole capitalist imperialist system right there. In his novel Burmese Days, he spells it out. The Raj's purpose wasn't to bring civilization, it was just to steal.
Oh.
He saw the structure so clearly. The British officer holds the Burman down while the businessman goes through his pockets. It's a very clear-eyed anti-capitalist view that would pop up again and again in this work.
So he's reeling from this moral stain of Burma. He comes back to England and he makes this pretty radical choice. He decides to go live among the working poor. We see this in Down and Out in Paris and London and the road to Wigan Pier. What was the goal here beyond just, trying to absolve his guilt?
It was about solidarity, really, and trying to find genuine revolutionary potential. This period cemented his commitment to aligning with the oppressed, and it helped him map out exactly where a socialist revolution could go wrong. He was trying to figure out where the real desire for liberty was.
And what he found was a pretty deep distrust of certain intellectual socialists.
Exactly. He really called out the hypocrisy he saw in some middle-class socialists who claimed to support the working class, but seemed more interested in these abstract, top-down reforms. He saw them as being completely out of touch, more interested in imposing a neat, orderly, state-controlled system than in actually empowering people.
And that distinction he makes between this sort of theoretical socialism and real lived solidarity, that's directly reflected in the political structure of 1984, isn't it? Especially with the proles.
It's the source of the one tiny flicker of hope in that entire dark novel. Orwell came to believe the working class, the proles, had this core, essential decency that kept them from betraying their ideals. Unlike some of the educated people he knew who were pretty quick to embrace Stalinism or centralized power.
And that belief, that's what inspires Winston Smith's big realization. The proles, they're 85% of the population, but the party just ignores them. But Winston realizes that the power to destroy the party must lie in the proles if they could ever just wake up.
It suggests that real resistance starts with that simple human decency, not with some complicated academic theory. But look, if Burma planted the seeds of anti-imperialism and England refined his ideas on class, the absolute critical, life-changing event for Orwell was the Spanish Civil War.
Right. This is 1936, 1937. He writes about it in Homage to Catalonia. He goes to Spain searching for political clarity, and he comes back a man convinced that revolution could be, well, terrifyingly perverted. He joins the POUM militia, which was anti-Stalinist.
And when he first gets to Barcelona, he is just ecstatic. He saw a revolutionary city where everything felt genuinely classless. It was a real working socialist society. Waiters treated him as an equal, tipping was abolished, shops were collectivized. He felt for the first time in his life what a society based on equality and liberty could actually feel like.
So that practical lived experience, it confirmed for him that real socialism was tied to freedom. It wasn't just about state capitalism or centralization.
But the tragedy is that this vision it didn't last. He was shot in the throat, which, ironically, probably saved his life by getting him off the front lines. When he got back to Barcelona, he saw the revolution being perverted, as he put it. The Soviet-backed communist forces, they were focused on centralizing power, and they started violently suppressing their more radical allies, the POUM and the anarchists.
It was an internal purge, a civil war within the civil war.
Yes. His comrades, people like Bob Smiley, died in prison. Andres Nin, the leader of POUM, was captured and murdered. He saw his friends suddenly being labeled as enemies just because they had a vision of socialism that Moscow didn't like.
And this betrayal, this is the moment the Ministry of Truth is born in his mind, right? He didn't just see the violence, he saw the state's machinery of lies kick into gear.
He witnessed it firsthand. The communist press spreading just blatant, provably false propaganda. They accused POUM members, his comrades who were fighting fascists, of being fascist collaborators. They were systematically destroying facts, fabricating history to fit the party line. For Orwell, this was the ultimate political betrayal.
That firsthand experience of seeing facts destroyed and history rewritten by a state press, that was the terrifying blueprint for the entire system of control in 1984.
It completely changed his focus. Before Spain, he was writing about external oppression, like imperialism. After Spain, his focus shifted inward to the state's ability to invade the human mind and destroy reality itself.
Okay, so let's break down that instruction manual for tyranny that he created. The 3 core tools he codified from Spain: manipulating history, invading the mind, and destroying language.
Starting with history, the most famous tool is the memory hole. Winston Smith's job at the Ministry of Truth is to constantly rewrite historical records and destroy the originals. He literally drops them into an incinerator. And it's all based on the party's most powerful slogan: who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past.
So if your past is always changing, if the state can just redefine what happened yesterday, you lose your footing. You can't challenge today. But if the party is controlling the records outside your mind, they use doublethink to control the records inside your mind.
Exactly. Doublethink is the core psychological weapon. It's not just lying. It's this deliberate act of psychological torture. You're forced to accept 2 contradictory beliefs as true. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. The goal is to create a state of cognitive dissonance so deep that you lose the ability to trust your own memory or your own critical thought.
It basically makes you an active accomplice in your own delusion.
Precisely. You become incapable of independent thought. You're just constantly editing your own reality to fit whatever the party says it is today. And the ultimate goal of all this is what Orwell called duck-speak speech that's totally independent of consciousness.
That concept, duck speak, it's terrifyingly passive. Which brings us to the final, most absolute tool of control: linguistic control, or newspeak. The ambition of newspeak is just staggering.
The whole point of newspeak is to shrink the range of thought so that dissent becomes literally impossible. The language is constantly getting smaller, and it's meant to totally replace English or Old Speak by the year 2050. The purpose isn't just censorship, it's to make heretical thought literally unthinkable by just getting rid of the words you would need to express it.
So if you only have words for party-approved thoughts, then complex ideas just vanish.
Take the word free. We mentioned it still exists in newspeak, but only for a statement like, "This dog is free from lice." If you tried to say, "The people should be free," well, the word free in that political sense just doesn't exist anymore. The concepts themselves have been erased from the language, making the statement impossible to even form.
So what about a word like justice or honesty? How would they survive in newspeak?
They'd be completely neutered. Good is fine. But if you want the opposite, bad might just become ungood. Very simple. But for a concept like justice, the word itself would just become obsolete because the party is justice by definition. To say you want justice outside of the party's actions would be meaningless. It's like closing the borders of the mind.
So when you trace that whole trajectory from the guilt of Burma to the search for solidarity in England and then the devastating betrayal in Spain, you really understand. Animal Farm and 1984 are not simple arguments. They are these urgent, complex warnings against unchecked power in any form.
Exactly. They are warnings against totalitarianism, whether it's Stalinism or Western colonialism or any authority anywhere that fails to protect truth and equality. His goal was always to show how power corrupts, no matter what flag it's flying.
And we still see that relevance so strongly today. I mean, sales of 1984 surged back in 2017 after Kellyanne Conway used the phrase alternative facts. And more recently, we've seen political figures using Orwell's ideas to critique things like corporate censorship.
And that comparison is really revealing because it shows how the work is still being, slightly misinterpreted. While modern debates focus a lot on Silicon Valley or private companies, Orwell's primary concern, from Burma to Spain, was always with state or governmental suppression. It was about the government's power to imprison you, to rewrite the law, to execute you for what you believe. That distinction between state power and corporate power is still a really crucial one when we apply his work today.
That's a crucial reminder. The power he feared most was the one that claimed absolute control over reality itself. So, as a final thought for you to carry forward, let's go back to that ultimate aim of newspeak, duck-speak, speech independent of consciousness.
Right. If the state succeeds in engineering a language where the very words you need to think a divergent thought are just abolished, then resistance doesn't just become hard, it becomes logically impossible. The ultimate question Orwell leaves us with is this: if the vocabulary you need to commit a thought crime has been erased, how can the human mind even conceive of challenging the party? The total erasure of language and thought, that is the most absolute tyranny of all.